In today's video I'm going to be covering the games that were published by Titus. They were a French company, which we shouldn't be too surprised about because the Amstrad had a massive market share over in France. This was the first actual game that was released for the Amstrad GX4000 in September 1990. The price point though was £29.99. In fact, all of Titus's games were this price, which was more expensive than any of the other GX games that were released. So it was a little bit of a debate about how much it cost up to 16-bit consoles at the time, like the Sega Mega Drive. Here is the spine, and actually I really like this. Titus did spend a bit of time on the spines. People like Ocean were a little bit bland with this, but no, I like it. And then we have the cover on the back. Nothing really too much going on with this, really. As you can see, all the different languages: French, English, German, Italy and Spain. Here is the cartridge. Nothing too impressive going on there, but it says what it does. And this is the manual. But no, overall, I didn't mind playing it. It was a good game, but Amstrad Action, given its 94%, was quite over the top for me, really. Yeah, the reviews were quite high for this, and I just generally think people were a little bit excited about the GX coming out and got a bit carried away there. But overall, not a bad game. I'd say kind of middling, average for a 8-bit racing car game at the time, but not as good as the 8-bit Sega Master System, so they could have done better, but that's my opinion. This was Crazy Cars 2, which was the second title to be released by Titus. This was released in November 1990. Really pretty good reviews, certainly a lot more down-to-earth reviews. It was a bit controversial again because of the price point, but generally not a bad game. There was also a original CPC version, which this does have a few enhancements over, so at least they have made quite an effort with that. As you can see by the spine, quite appealing if you walked into a retailer. Very nice. The back is very similar to Fire and Forget 2. Same layout, nothing too amazing with this. Again, the cartridge, just a standard cartridge really, but says what it means too. Crazy Cars 2. And obviously the user manual as well. Obviously this was intended to be released for Christmas 1990. This is Wild Street, which was the third game published by Titus. It was eventually released in May. This was quite a controversial game in some respects because Titus, like Ocean and a few other publishers, were in dispute with Amstrad in May. This was because Amstrad originally insisted that Publisher needed to have a minimum of 20,000 games released. So this was expensive for the publishers to get a minimum run of 20,000 cartridges. And once they'd found out that how poor the GX4000 was selling, many of them threatened to pull their games. This was included with Ocean as well, that had Chase HQ2, Pang, Plotting and Navy Seals that were all complete and ready for cart duplication, but they weren't going to release their games and then not make the sales back because of the poor sales. So this was quite famous in one way because whereas Fire and Forget 2 was the first game that was released for the Amstrad, this was the first game to be released that had the new lower limit after Amstrad had to relent, or we would have had far fewer games on the GX. As you can see, it was a beautiful title, a beautiful cover, and this is a very nice spine. The back is very much what you'd expect from standard game released from Titus. All the different countries, nothing's really changed here. This is the cartridge, quite nice, quite appealing. And this is the user manual. So yeah, this was originally released on the CPC as well, and it does have enhancements, but this is quite legendarily the worst game on the GX4000 by quite a mile. It's terrible. I have played it and it just doesn't work. It's very sloppy. There's nothing interesting about it. The only thing I do love about it is it's got absolutely gorgeous 16-bit looking title screen, but if that's all you've got going for it. But no, this was quite a controversial game, but just glad that it was Titus and a few of the other publishers that managed to get Amstrad to relent. Here we are with the final game released by Titus. That was released in early June, and this is Dick Tracy. It's, as you can see, it has a beautiful cover. Now this is one of the rarest games for the Amstrad GX4000, believe it or not. This will turn up on eBay maybe once every 2 or 3 years if you're lucky. This was obviously due to the fact that a few of the publishers had won the debate with Amstrad about how many cartridges they had to pay. This one was down to 10,000 when Fire Forget 2 and Crazy Cars 2 were both at 20,000. As you can see, this has a lovely spine. Definitely, in my opinion, the best for the GX. I wish all of them had spines like this. And the back, nothing really too different to any of the other games that we've seen from Titus. This is, of course, the cartridge, Dick Tracy, and this is the user manual. So yes, Dick Tracy, very, very challenging one to get hold of, and would almost certainly be one of the last games you'll get, not including the Phaser Pack games and Chase HQ2, obviously. Overall, Titus did make a go of it on the GX4000, but their games were not fantastic by any stretch of the imagination, and in fact Wild Streets is terrible. But they did have faith, and they, believe it or not, with only 4 games, that was one of the publishers that made the most games for the Amstrad, which is slightly worrying. But anyway, I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this video. Thank you very much.